I really appreciate if we could actually turn on audio so we could actually talk, and yeah, so because it helps us feel involved with the whole workshop. Yeah. So basically we'll be starting pretty soon, but we are just currently waiting for more folks to actually join us. Yeah, because we don't really want to start and have people joining in late and be like they not really follow. So that's why we're kind of delaying our start time. So we have more people join the call. But definitely by 4:20 we should we should start. Yeah, because we've actually given 20 minutes grace for people not here to actually join. So but by 4:20 we should start. And nice to have everyone on the call. I would really appreciate if you just turn on our audio to like say one or two things if it's comfortable for you.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here. I'm supporting Samson. What's his name?
Thanks, Boma.
You could actually call him
GraphQL like
Swacblooms.
database or something.
You see?
The GraphQL, is it a database? This is like my first time of hearing it.
Oh, wow.
Don't worry, discover.
Nice.
Samson, don't say anything.
Nice.
Exactly. Full stop.
What kind of suspense is this?
No, that's why you're here. You're in the right place. You're in the right place. You are doing well.
Alright.
You're in the right place. I don't really like calling me sir, please. I think I already told you so.
Okay.
Looks like network is not really good for Zubi. He has been joining, rejoining.
Yeah, it's kind of hard. It's-
Yeah, one more minute.
So start counting down in seconds.
You could actually volunteer now. 0, 60, 55, 58, 57, 56, 55, 54, 53,
59
52,
seconds.
51. I don't know how to count.
That is how keep your clock.
Minutes are fast.
Yup. Yeah, so welcome everyone. Yeah, developer circles Owerri, Facebook
Okay,
developer
time.
circles Owerri is really excited to have each and every one of us join this call. Yeah, I think this is the second technical workshop we are having this half of 2020. Yeah, we are in the second half of 2020, and this is one of the many events we've actually lined up for the community. Yeah, so DWC and I are really excited to host you guys again. And today we have an interesting speaker and a very interesting topic, GraphQL fundamentals. And I trust me. Yeah, GraphQL is a technology you definitely glad you are conversant with, or it's definitely a technology you're glad that you actually took out time to learn about. And hopefully at the end of this workshop you definitely have gotten some ideas around GraphQL. Yeah, so without wasting much of our time and not being too technical and too formal, yeah, I would love to pass the microphone and the crowd, the audience, yeah, to Samson. Yeah.
Okay, so 3, 2, 1, and action. Yeah, so my name is Samson Amugo, and I'm really honored to be part of this community and also to be a guest here that will be hosting this GraphQL session. And the topic for today is GraphQL fundamentals. Before I commence, I would like to know, is anyone here conversant with GraphQL? Have you used it? Have you heard about it? If you've had, can unmute your microphone and just say hi. What? Nobody?
Hi.
Okay, cool, cool.
Hi.
Yeah, cool, cool. Okay. So let's go on. So what is GraphQL? GraphQL is described as a query language for APIs and a runtime for fulfilling those queries with your existing data. Now, this might come off as ambiguous or vague. Let me try and explain it this way. So when you're dealing with GraphQL, there are two things you need to consider: the server and the client. So for you to make use of GraphQL, you need to send something called a query. And that query contains like some syntax, it's a string that contains the definition of what you actually need, what you need to retrieve from your server or database or data store, whatever. So once that query gets to your database or once it gets to your server, the GraphQL runtime in your server tries to parse that query, tries to like get out some meaning, try to make meaning out of the query. And there's something called resolvers. Resolvers are like functions that try to give you what you need, like predefined answers. It tries to query your database and source out the data needed to fulfill each query in your schema. I'll get to that. So once the query has been, executed and compiled well with the GraphQL runtime, then the resolvers works on it and gives you the data you need. So moving forward, why was GraphQL created? So back in 2012, some mobile developers in Facebook, Facebook then, that was when the mobile app became quite popular because initially Facebook was just a website. So when they tried to make the initial version of Facebook mobile app, it was basically an app using WebView. So WebView is like a wrapper that tries to like engulf, like a wrap around the website kind of application or website. So instead of building a totally different native view of an app, we just use the web view there and try to wrap it. And that also makes it to just try to code once and compare across various platforms. So as Facebook became kind of complicated and complex, they discovered that this would really affect the performance of users. It would affect users' experience in Facebook. So they transitioned into using native view. So once they transitioned into using native view, there were some considerations that were made, and one of them included using REST APIs. I'm sure most of you like REST APIs have been existing for quite some time now. It's very popular, and they discovered that REST API won't really give them what they needed. So along the line, looking at okay, some of the things they needed was where to bring out a technology where the UI, like the front-end designers and the UI designers, will just work on the best way to maximize and give their users the best user experience possible than wondering and thinking about how the data will be gotten. And fortunately enough for them, they came up with GraphQL. Now GraphQL has lots of benefits that it provides, and we'll definitely get into that. So this is what a basic fetch API looks like in JavaScript, and this is a post request that you can see here. I don't know. It's okay. Just to be sure, is anyone here not a web developer, or you don't have any experience in programming at all? Just to be sure, you can just say hi. Let me just have an idea. Okay, nobody. Seems like everyone here is a programmer. Cool. Okay. So this is what a basic request using fetch API looks like. So this is the endpoint example.com/send. And here you can see that this is a JavaScript object, a username example. So I'm trying to like push this data here. And here I'm trying to make it a string. So I'm trying to find the data. So I'm trying to push the data, this username example, I'm trying to push to the server. This is the normal way, this is the normal REST API that we know about. Then this is what a GraphQL request would look like when using the same fetch API. This code looks a little bit longer. I kind of made this a function. This is the function get author. So what this function does is to retrieve some contents of various authors. So here I try to define the query. Later I'll explain about this query, as this is just the fundamentals. So this query, what this query means is that the query should retrieve the author's information in data store, and under the authors, for each author that is being retrieved, it only needs the name field. And here, this is the actual fetch API that's being used. As you can see, I'm using await. This await keyword means that this is asynchronous. It's a shorter way of using promises. So here, I'm appending the query to the fetch request, and at the end, the function returns the author's content. So moving forward here, now you might now look at this. This looks kind of long, and like, just to be sincere, it doesn't look really neat to maintain. And that is a good thing about GraphQL. GraphQL, there are lots of cool libraries around, like the OQL, Apollo client, Apollo GraphQL, and many others. And the one I would recommend, because it seems kind of beginner friendly, is Apollo GraphQL. It's a great library. So this query now is definitely the same thing with this. You can see how short and precise this one is. And then we'll still write a basic GraphQL server, just have an idea. So this is the same query in the previous slide. Now this GQL you're seeing here is what is called a JavaScript template literal. So this GQL function tries to convert your query into an AST. An AST means abstract syntax tree. Now this abstract syntax tree is mainly a heavily nested object, and that object contains like relationships between your data model defined in your schema. This GraphQL looks at data in terms of graphs and models, relationships. And one other thing you should know about GraphQL is that GraphQL is data set agnostic. It doesn't care if you're making use of like all my asked initially, whether I don't know the question asked, whether it was an SQL kind of stuff. Now GraphQL is very agnostic. It doesn't care where your data is coming from. The thing that you need to do is just to write your query. You just need to write the data you want and you retrieve it. That's good thing about GraphQL. It doesn't care. So next, this is what a sample response, this is a mock response of what this query. This query now means get author's details. And in my schema, although we have not gotten there, but for the example we're going to use later on, the schema for this author, it returns an array of author type. And for each author type, there are various fields, but the one that I need for this specific request is just the name field. So here you can see it returned an array of author, and inside each object of the author, it just return the name of the author. Okay. So two important things you need to know in GraphQL. Number one is the schema, very important. And number two is the query language. The query language is just that string that you append to each request to define what you need. So this is an example of a schema. Now, what is a schema? A schema is just a compilation of the possible fields and data you can request from or retrieve from your server or data store. So first of all, there are various in the schema. There are like, and it depends. But if your GraphQL server is just for retrieving data, you must define your query. So for this query, there are two fields under the query, and number one, we have the authors field, and the authors field returns an array of author type, which you can see above here. And the next field under this type query is the books field, and this book field returns the book type. Now, you don't just stop here. You also have to define. That is one of the things about GraphQL. Everything is strongly typed. You can't just like define partially some types and leave it. You have to define every single thing that you can retrieve from the database. So here in the author, we have the ID field, we have the name, and you can see for the ID, there are some default types in GraphQL. So for the ID, I set it to be an ID type. For the name is a string. Then anytime you want to like define custom fields, so custom types, you have to like write them yourself. Just like I define this type auto. This type auto is a custom type, but this string is a default type. So I don't need to like define. So moving forward here, then remember I said the second important thing you need to know in GraphQL is query language. The first is the schema, the second is query language. So the query language is basically a string, and if you look at it, it looks like a JSON. So it's a JSON-like formatted string, although it's not JSON, but it looks like JSON. So here, what is query just saying? I need data from the authors, yeah, should I say collection or document, whatever. And under this, I just need to retrieve the name. So that's what this query is trying to describe here. Then there's one thing before I continue here. Most of you would have violated this. I myself have violated this when I want to like, let me say, delete some data in database. I might just make use of a delete endpoint using a get request instead of using my delete method. You know, I'm sure most of you have done that. You just slash delete whatever the ID of the person and you do that. So one thing with GraphQL here that GraphQL has what is called mutation. So in mutations are like functions or commands that you run to realize an effect in your server. For instance, you can create some data, you can add some data to your database, you can delete, you can update, basic crude operation, you can do that. And that is the good thing about GraphQL. Any operation you're doing that will affect any change, create, update, delete, you have to do that using a mutation query. Okay, so next. Okay, but before I continue now this mutation queries, this one was just designed for creating a book. So create a book, then if you look at it, looks like that thing looks more like a JavaScript kind of syntax. So here, create a book. It also accepts some arguments. So here we have the title, we have the author. Now, one thing you should note here is that I'm using, and because there are various, one thing you should know is that GraphQL is a spec. So for each language, they have various ways of going around it. So this example I'm using is basically the way to documentation using the Flow library. If you're using Ruby, they have their own way. Even if you're using like just bare express.js framework in Node.js, there are node modules that you can use to create mutation to not be like this. So this my example is based on Apollo's way of handling mutations. So just in case you go online and then you try to check how it's a mutation written and you see something different. So don't be scared about that. So this mutation here looks like a JavaScript function. This is a create book mutation. So what it does is just create a book. And the thing about mutations in GraphQL is that you can also request for data to be retrieved at the end. So at the end of this create book, all I need is just the title. Then one other thing is that you can't just write a mutation. You can't write a mutation without writing the schema for the mutation. Let me just take it back so you understand something. Now remember here in the schema, I defined a type for a query. Now you also need to define a type for a mutation if you have plans to create a mutation in your backend. So here I created a mutation, type mutation. I defined what the create book mutation return, which is a book type. And below here is the schema for the book type, just for you guys to remember. At the end, you can ask any question you want as well. So why GraphQL is good? GraphQL actually has lots of benefits with it. So let's see. Declarative data fetching. Yeah, in GraphQL, you can just write a query to get exactly what you need. And in the next benefit, you understand why. So the next one we have here is soft overfetching and underfetching. Unlike in normal REST APIs that we use, let's say you want to retrieve the data of a user. with the particular ID. So let's say the endpoint is www.example.com/user/the ID. Let's say the ID is 1/1. And the only thing you need for that request is you just need the name and the age. But then the normal, like the classical REST API kind of way, you get more than you need. You might even get the person's class, the person's location, all those things like that. Another layer of network data consumption to users, you know. So GraphQL solves this because in GraphQL you can, even if you want to just get the user's data, you can also describe the particular field of the user's data that you want to be retrieved in your client. Now on the fetching the situation whereby a single query, let's say you want to get the user's data, like the user's profile data, personal info, and you also want to get the related data to the user. So sometimes, some cases, you might see yourself making 2 requests. But in GraphQL, because of the way GraphQL query was designed, you can just write them in a related format and send to the server and get exactly what you need. So GraphQL solves all this problem. So next, we have strong type system. Looking back in our schema, you saw that I had to define the type for each field that we can actually query in the front end. So that is good part of it. Then support real-time updates with subscriptions. So let's say, for instance, you want to do the chat app. So for chat apps, you don't make requests. Anyway, you can go about it in making timely requests, like periodic requests to your database, see if there's any new data. But that is not really the best way to handle it. So there's something called WebSocket. So GraphQL tries to leverage WebSockets and give you that kind of real-time updates in your client, so that once there's any updates in your chat application, you get the updates just like WhatsApp. Although I'm not talking about subscription in this meeting, or you can check it online. Next, we have it can be integrated with old infrastructures. So let's say you're kind of interested in this GraphQL, or you feel like the benefits would really help team to make a particular section of the database or of your backend or server better. And you're thinking about scraping out your old data, your old code base to change it totally, to update it to the GraphQL code base. But the good thing about GraphQL is that you don't need to scrape any data. GraphQL actually leverages on existing code base. So you can make use of your previously written code base and attach a GraphQL layer without scraping your old data, your old code base. So that is the good thing about GraphQL. Then you only need a single endpoint. Now that is one of the really awesome features I like about GraphQL. Unlike REST API, and why I'm always making reference to REST API, because I'm sure all of you can, relate to that. You have probably used a REST API, whether in a mobile app or in a web app. So in GraphQL, you just make it of a single endpoint, and with that single endpoint, you can update, you can read, you can delete. The only thing you just need to do is define your query, and that is all. So moving forward, we have introspection. Oh, what is introspection? So let me just use this scenario now. Introspection is just basically the client asking the server, hey, what's up? What can I get from you? What are the possible fields? What is the possible data that I can get from you? And introspection takes us to the next benefit of GraphQL. And the next benefit of GraphQL is documentation. Now, for you all writing documentation for your REST API, although there might be some ways to like make it automated, with Postman and the rest, but GraphQL gives you straight up documentation out of the box, because initially you have to like write the schema, and the schema is strongly typed. Then for this documentation stuff, now you're asking me, okay, where are you going to see it? So there's something called a GraphQL playground. Now, what this GraphQL playground does, it gives you this kind of platform where you can test out your query. You can also see the possible fields and data you can request from your backend. And even as we go forward, I'll show you how to make use of. We're going to try out an example using a GraphQL playground. You see how the code was documented automatically. That is the cool part about GraphQL. You know what you can actually query for. So now go into the world and get some fruity juice. some juicy fruits. That's a joke. Sorry. Okay. So let's build a basic GraphQL server. My socials, well, okay, let me try and move this screen something else. I don't know. Can you see my VS Code now? I don't know. Okay, cool. Okay. So here in this so here just everything is just blank. It's blankly written here. So let me this is blocking something. Let me open my terminal. So in this example, I'm going to make use of Node.js. So this example is just JavaScript. So let me set my npm package. Okay. So at this point, my npm package has been the package.json file has been created automatically. Next, there are some dependencies that we'll need in this example. I'm going to need npm install. I'm going to need Apollo server, and I also need GraphQL. And lastly, just to restart my server anytime I make a change, I'm going to make use of node-mon here. So just give it a little bit of time. Let's wait more. Yeah.
Man, this way there. Try.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
This is the part I hate the most about JavaScript development.
Yes.
I don't understand. Okay, let's not have this argument now. But I've used Composer and I know Composer. Exactly, Composer self they do am. Guy, I just don't like this weight. I'm telling you, too much.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. I just hope this loads fast. Okay. Man, if I would have just installed it and continued from that. Okay. Cool.
Yep. So okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
So it's ready now. It's ready now. So I'd like to create an SLC folder because that's where all that files will be. There are like 3 or 4 files I need to create here. My index.js file. I also need to create my type dev.js file. What should I want? I also need to create my isovers.js file, and I need to create. Anyway, I'm not be using a real database here, so I'm just going to have a JavaScript object and array that'll serve as my mock database here. So moving to my index.js file. So let me open the Apollo GraphQL library. This is their website. So the website is very, very understandable. It's something you can easily use. So the first thing they did here was to, okay, so they copied this, all right. Oh, I forgot, yeah, it's my VS this thing, Abi. You guys are just saying my VS code, right? Because I just opened the website
Been
now.
seeing it since.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I think you'd actually just share your whole desktop.
Okay, let me do that. Okay, so can you see my browser now? Can you see my browser now? Okay, cool. So this is the Apollo GraphQL
Yes.
library, and it's one of the most popular libraries in JavaScript for handling GraphQL. So this is the server side. So I've done all these processes. And to just set up your GraphQL server, all you need to do is to import the Apollo server constructor and this GQL for passing your queries. So let me get back to my VS Code. So yeah, I'm going to just import it. I'm going to import Apollo server and okay, let me leave GQL here because I'll do that in different file. So next thing I'm going to do is to I instantiate this Apollo server. Let me just go. Let's server Apollo server. Now to set this constructor up and running, you need to like put in an object into it as the argument. And from the library, it accepts two things, which are the type definition, type depth, and also accepts the resolver. Although I've not done this yet. So let me just explain. This type depth now would be a file that contains the schema, what you are doing. And then the resolver is basically a function that tries to fulfill data requirement for each field in your schema. Okay. Although I've not set that up, I just put that there. So next I would set up my server.listen. I know why it's like this. Then I'll use let's just use 7,000 as the port. Dot. Let me check something in the browser. And let me check. Okay. 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 So to continue to accept then there's a promise. And I would like to destructure new JavaScript syntax. I like to destructure this. Just get that console. Okay. So moving forward, the next thing I'd like to do here, so just like I said earlier, when working with GraphQL, you need to consider the client side and you also need to consider the server. And the server, in fact, the server is where most of the GraphQL work is done. The only thing you need to do in the client side is just send your queries and that's all. So the next thing we're going to do here is to define our schema. Then after that, we'll define our resolver. So the resolver works with the schema. So I'm going to use that. Let me copy this first. So I'm going to define my schema in type depth, this file here. Okay. Let me check something which I'm not sure I did. Okay. Excuse me. Okay, cool, cool, cool. Okay, so moving forward, the next thing that I'm going to try and do here is to define. I'm going to import the GQL. So this GQL is like a function. Like I said earlier, it's a JavaScript template literal that helps to pass your queries or define your schema in an AST format. So that AST format it means abstract syntax tree. That's what's used by GraphQL runtime in your server to pass stuff. So next, I'm going to do let's GQL. Okay, I copied something initially. I want this to be GQL. So, okay. Hold on, let me check something on the side. Okay. So the next thing that I'm going to do now is to define, I'm going to define the type definition for this project. Let me copy this. Okay. Export.gql. Export.type. So looking at the data we're working with, what this GraphQL server basically does is that you can request for the data of an author, and you can also request for the data of various books. So here I'm going to define the type for various options, for various fields here. So first,
Swacblooms, please allow me to interrupt you.
okay.
Can I?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, because I really understand that
Hello? I'm not hearing you.
Are you hearing me now?
Yes, what do you say?
Okay, I said I want to understand some questions now. I want to understand some things rather.
Okay.
GraphQL works with an existing database, right?
Yes, sure.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
meaning I can probably use it with an S. Is that right?
Meaning you can probably use it with
SQL database,
yes.
or
Mm-hmm.
should I say MySQL?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that means what GraphQL is basically is a layer on top of that database that allows you to communicate with it. Am I getting it right?
Yeah, you're getting it right. But in this example, like we're not using a database, so like you can see here, I don't know, I see my screen. I see in this data.js.
Yeah.
So in this data.js file, that's where we're going to like define. We're going to just make use of a regular JavaScript object as the database. Like I said initially, I said that GraphQL is data store agnostic, so it doesn't care if you're making use of SQL or you're making use of MongoDB or whatever.
Yeah. Though I don't actually care about the database. I know you can store it in anything, even in a file. But I just wanted to understand what it actually was. So GraphQL is just a layer that allows you to fetch data in a particularly effective way. Is that correct?
You're right. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Okay. So moving forward, let me get back to the type test file. So as you can see in this Apollo server is like a module from the Apollo GraphQL library. So I imported the GQL. The GQL is what I used to pass all the schema queries. So first of all, we're going to define our query. We have type query here, and under this query type, there are two fields that we are going to use. We're going to we can request for the authors field, and the authors field returns an array of type author, which we are going to define down below. And next, we're also going to also request for the books field, and the books field would also return an array of type book, which we are going to define soon. So next, we're going to define the type book. Like type book is a custom type, so you can't just leave it like this. If not, your GraphQL will not be fulfilled properly. So the next is book. Then you now think of the various fields that you want a type of book to have. So from the preparation I did, I set ID, an ID return an ID here, and it can also return a title. That is like the name of the book, and this title, since it's not a custom field, a custom type, I'm just going to use a string. String is a default type in GraphQL. Then the next here is the author. That is the author of the book. String, return a string type. Then another thing. Yeah, that is all. That is all for the book type. The next thing we're going to define here is we're going to define our type, the author type. And what are the various fields? So in the author type, we're going to have an ID of a type ID. Then next, we're going to have the name. The name would be a string. And we'll have books, like an author can have many books he or she has written. So we'll have a books field here, which will return an array of books or book type. I just use the singular form since an array. Okay. So these are just the basic, these are the queries we can make. We can request for the author details. We can also request for book details. And next, we can request for, okay, so I'm done with the queries. The next thing, just like in case, assume you want to delete a book or create a book, there's something called mutation. So I have to also define the mutation. So let's see. The various mutations that we're going to have here, we're going to have a mutation to create a book. We're also going to have a mutation to delete a book, a mutation to create an author, a mutation to delete an author. So that's what we're going to do next now. So type mutation and create author. Just like I said, when using Apollo, writing a mutation is it resembles a basic JavaScript function. And this creates author field mutation would accept various arguments to accept the name, that is the name of the author. And there's some when I use this exclamation mark, that means I can't execute this mutation without this field being available. So if I remove this exclamation mark, that means I can execute this mutation without the field. But since I want it to be a vital part of this mutation to take place, I have to make it a must. That's what the exclamation mark means here. And after the mutation is implemented, I would like it to return the author type. So we're going to see this in the GraphQL playground. So next, we're going to also create a mutation, define a mutation type for create books. Now, the books mutation would accept various arguments to accept the title, and we would also need to define the type of the title. I remember I said initially that in GraphQL, one feature of peculiarity about GraphQL is that everything is strongly typed. So we're also going to define the type of the title here. Let me check the documentation for something. Okay. So the next argument that this would use, I would like, when creating a book, I would like the user to impute the author of the book as well. I'll need this to be a must. Then this should return the type book. Then next, so we're done with create author and create books. The next two mutations that I like to implement is to delete the author and delete book. So I write delete author name. I like the normal server setup. This is not the efficient way to use the name as this unique ID. It ought to be like a unique random string that's very unique. I'm using a name. This is just an example. So that's why I'm using a name to delete an author. This does not supposed to be so. It's just an example, sure. So string, yeah. Then that is all. That's all I need to delete. So I want this to return a string. The last mutation to define is to delete book. This book. Sorry, this should be book because it's just one book. That's why I'm designing this. Although you can also make it multiple, but for this example, to be only one book, you can. So the argument for this delete book would be a string, and it's a must. String. Now to return a type string. Yeah. So if you look, I've already exported it here. So all I need to do is to like import this in my index file. I'll just do. Okay, let me just use const. So const type dev require type dev. So the next thing we're going to, right now I've like defined our schema for this GraphQL server. The next thing we have to define is the resolver. So like I said earlier, just for those coming in, a resolver is basically a function that tries to fulfill the required data requirement for each field in your schema. So it makes reference to the schema and tries to fulfill the data for each field. So now we're going to define that. I've already created the resolver file here. So moving forward, okay. In the resolver, since we're going to be working with fulfilling queries, that means we need something like a data store. For now, we're not making use of a database. So let's just define this. Let's just define something here in our data file. So I'll do export dot. I want the authors to be an array. So authors should be an array. And then export dot books. I also want the books to be an array. In a real production setup, we'll be working with a database, but this is just an example. So I'm just in a basic JavaScript object, an array. So the next thing we're going to do is to put down and define our resolvers. So what do we need? We're going to import our fake database. So we're going to import authors, also going to import books. Data. Okay. So just for you to know, a resolver is just an object. It's just an object. And under the object, there are various properties, and those properties have methods that try to fulfill the field. So start out by just exporting our resolver. Export dot resolver. So the first field we're going to define is our query. And under the query, now let me just split this into two so you guys would have an idea of what I'm doing here. Okay, so yeah, I splitted my VS Code screen so that you can see how I would be writing my resolver in reference to the schema, because that is what you need to do. Write your resolver in reference to your schema. So in my query, we have two fields here. We have the authors field and we have the books field. So I'm going to define a method that will fulfill this. So I'll just do authors. Now, one thing you should understand is that for each resolver, a resolver in Apollo GraphQL and in most libraries, they are set for arguments. They have four arguments, which are, we have the parent. Let me just be writing it down. We have the parent, we have the arguments, which here, like looking here now, in this mutation, you can see that mutation has arguments. Although in our query, we didn't like define arguments for this query. So we'll continue with this. Then the next one on the list is the context, although we're not going to make use of this. I'm just writing it so that you guys know, as this is just fundamental. And the last one is the info. So an info, in this info, that's where you even see the AST pass down structure of the GraphQL query. Although we're not going to use it as well. So I just want to return authors. And looking at our data at this point in time, it's just an empty array. And looking also at the schema here, you see that this is just an array of author types. So okay, sorry, there's a mistake. This is flagging an error. I'm using arrow function. Yeah. So the next field we have to define here is our books. And just like the authors field, the authors property accepted for acts. We're also going to do that here. So I want to return books. Yes. So before I continue and write out the resolvers for other fields like author and book and the mutation, we'll have to try this out first. So first of all, I'll go back to my index file here and import okay. So remember that I'm using node_mon. So for each, oh damn, sorry, I not set it up. Let me set up my server. So for me to run node_mon, I'll just have to do node_mon. My index.js file is inside my SRC folder. So I'll just do src/index.js. If you have any question along the way, please do well to ask me. I'll answer as I'm coding.
Yeah, I have one question.
Okay, yeah, go
on. You put exclamation marks after the data type to enforce that it is compulsory for it to be that particular type.
Yes, exactly.
My question is, if you didn't enforce it, would it accept any type of data?
Okay, if you not enforce it, no, actually, it's not about the type of data. It's about having, although that is the second thing that is going to look at. If you didn't put the exclamation mark there, if you try to send or execute that query, that mutation query, without this requirement of a title field, a title argument, it's going to throw an error on the client side.
Oh, meaning what it is enforcing is that particular field, not the type of data.
Well,
okay,
yeah.
Okay.
It's apparently, okay. Anyway, it goes both sides. It actually needs that type of data. It also needs that field. So anyone that you don't try to do is going to like flag out an error.
Okay, yeah. Now I understand.
Okay.
Yeah. So let me open my browser. I have a playground, an existing playground. Let me just refresh it. Okay. So let me just write it. So anyway, there are various shortcuts. So write a normal query. This is a playground, like I said earlier on at the beginning of this meeting. So if I'm to just do query, under the query, I just need the authors field, and under the authors field, I just need the name of the author. If I execute this, it's going to return an empty array. Why? That's because I've not added any data to our big database. Now, I also talked about documentation. Look at this right panel here. On the right side of the screen, you would see two menus. We have the docs and we have the schema. Let me just open the docs. Let me shift this. So just like assuming you were to use something like Postman, it might not come out as easy when doing this kind of stuff, because they just automatic documentation for any client or UI front-end guy. You can look at this and know the kind of data you can request for to be retrieved. And you can see there are various types here. And the good thing about it is that you can even add extra documentation. Now, let me just show you how you can add extra text to what you're doing. So going back to my VS Code, if you want to add a documentation using the Apollo client schema, you make use of this hash. So here, I'll just like define this is the ID of the book. If I go back to this stuff here, is it there? No, I think I need to refresh. Schema. Wait, let me check the docs just to be sure. Yeah, here they said comments in GraphQL starts with the hash, but for some reason I don't know why. Okay, let me try out something again. Just
Try starting your server.
no. Yeah, issue. I'm using NodeMont, so I believe like it updated automatically. Let me just refresh this. No, it's outside the book field. For some reason, maybe I'm doing it wrong. You should see like that comment I made. It should appear. But without that though, you can actually see what you can, retrieve from your database or from your server. Here, it showed you that you can retrieve the book info, you can retrieve the author info, and these are the various fields that you can request for. Okay, so next, let's just try and write the resolvers for other fields. Let's just do that. Okay, so I'm back here. Anything?
I want to ask something.
Okay.
Based on the type devs, when you were declaring the types, like I didn't actually get what you said about the ID.
Okay,
like the type of ID. Like I want to understand.
okay.
Like is that ID? Is it an integer or just like a normal type of data like that?
Okay. So
Because I know about the title.
Yeah.
So about the title, normally is strange that we normally know. Okay, so the IDs I want to.
Okay. So I said earlier on that in GraphQL there are custom types like that. These are the types that you have to like redefine yourself with the default types, and then there are default types that you don't need to redefine. Just for instance, now we have this type auto, and the default types are ID, string. We have other ones too, like enum, but this is just a fundamental. We're not good. We have enums. We have I think we have this kind of inheritance kind of stuff in TypeScript too. We have all those stuff. We also have I don't know if there's a float too, but there are various types.
Yes,
But
unions.
unions, yeah, we have unions there. Yeah, so let me see. Let me see. So you guys can also have an idea about that. The best place to see that in, just for you to know, anytime you want to like have more idea about GraphQL, just go to the GraphQL site. This is their official site. So here you can learn a lot about GraphQL. We have they have fragments, they have unions, they have input types, they have scholar types, they have enumeration types, but I'm not going to touch that there now. I'll just go with these basic types. I'm just working with string and ID now.
All right. I'll look into that later.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank
You're welcome. Okay, so looking at the resolver now, we stopped at the query for books. So the next thing that we're going to like work on is the author field. So let's do that. Don't make a mistake of defining it inside the query queue. You have to like do that separately. So this is the author. Now in the author field, you have to define the ID. I mean, these are just boilerplate stuff. You have to do the same thing over and over again. Although, since I'm not using arguments here, let me just stop here. Those ones are not that important. So I'll just return. Now, here I'm going to return the parent.id. And what is parent.id? So looking at this now, I'm here in my titles on the right side. So looking at this now, in this area, okay, I'm not on the left side. In this area, this authors resolver will just return the database, all the authors. Now, because of the way I'm describing this, here, I'm not here. I'm going to define that this field returns the parent. The parent is this is the parent of this. So here now on my left side, I'm going to return the parent ID of the particular array. I don't know if you grab, but what I'm trying to say is that everything is encapsulated in child and parent kind of relationship. So the ID from this author section here is the ID from the parent here in the query. So the next field I'm going to define is I'm going to define the name, and I'll do the same thing as well. The parent, I'll return the parent.name. Then looking at this, remember I'm making reference to this my schema because you can't just start writing resolvers without making reference to your schema, because the resolver is what you use to fulfill the fields in the schema. So that's why I splitted my VS Code into two. So the next field here is, as you can see, we have books, and books returns here on my right hand side, line 19. Books return an array of books. I'm going to define books. Then I'll do the same thing over again. Parent return. I'm going to return. Okay, so looking at this now, you can see here I defined a mock database. This is just a JavaScript array, and it needs to return an array of books. So here I'm going to define a book. And remember the book, since the books is a field under author, I'm going to only return a book that has the name. Looking at the way I defined my schema, I would have to return a book that has the name of the author. So I'm going to do books.filter. This is just a JavaScript order function. This is JavaScript order function. So I'm going to do if I.author, and I means like the object in question that's in focus. So if I.author is equals to the parent is the author, the whole author. Like I told you initially, that everything is a child-parent relationship. So if I.author is equals to the parent.name, I want it to be returned. That's what I want to return here. Okay. So moving forward, the next thing I'm going to define here now is my, what I say, okay, I need to define, I've not defined books, so I've not defined books. So I need to define books. I need to define books. So I define book. Now, looking at the right hand side here, you can see that books has various fields. We have ID, we have title, and we have author. So I have to define this again. Like, I'm almost doing the same thing for each field. That is what GraphQL is. But there are shortcuts to it which you learn. Like all these fields I'm doing, all these resolvers are not very important if you can fulfill everything at the parent layer. I'm just doing this since this is a fundamental. So in the book.id, I'm just going to return parents.id. Then the next field in book is the title. So in the title, I'm going to return I return parents author. Then in the author, yeah, sorry, parent.title. It should be parent.title. Then in the author, I return parent. Sorry, yeah, parent. I return parents.author. So at this point now, I defined the query, the resolvers for my book and my author. The next one I'll work with here is the mutation. Like looking at the schema on the right hand side here, you see that the schema is the last thing that's defined here. So let's work on that. So, mutation, create author. In this one, I'm not going to follow the shortcuts. I'll have to like use the args because this in the mutation you need to define args to actually execute something for a specific user or maybe to impute a particular data. So I'm going to use the args here. Then I just define a data here, a data object here, which I'll use to update the database, my fake database. So the ID, I don't want to download any module or whatever for producing or giving me random ID. So I'll just make use of date.now. Date.now uses time in milliseconds. So that's what I'm going to use as the ID. Next, name. The name, I'll take the name from the argument during the mutation. I'm going to make use of this. I'm going to make use of this argument. So arguments dot name. That's what I'll use for that. Yeah. So the next thing I'm going to do is to update. Since I'm just using JavaScript object as my database, I'll use the spread operator here to update my arrays. Any existing one, you spread it, then you update the current one. ESC standard. Okay. So finally, I want to return I'm not using database, I'm just using JavaScript methods to handle it. So I want to return my data. I want to return books. These are the existing ones already, the books of this author. So I'm going to do books.filter. If you have any question, please ask. I.author is equals to args.name. So this will just resolve. It will just resolve the books of the author. So I'm just in JavaScript to like get some relationships among the data. So the next thing we have is Okay, I've not defined books. Yeah. Next thing we have to define here as a mutation is create book. The parents, the same thing. I'm just repeating the same thing. So I'll create a fake data here. No, not a fake data. I'm constructing the data. So I'll use date.now to generate my random ID. Although this is not that random, this is just the current time down to millisecond. Then looking at this, you can see here in this create books and create book. Looking at this here, you can see that the book also has a title field and it also has an author field. So I have to get that. Then looking at the mutation for the create books here, we have the title and author argument. So I'm going to use that here now. Add the title, and you're also going to do author. Yeah, author. Oh, there's a mistake here. Add author. Okay. So we're going to update our database with a new book. This is not a real database, so I'll just have to spread the former books in the array and then append or concatenate the new array, which is my data. Then I'll just return data. Okay, so after doing this, the next thing we're going to work on here, we have the delete auto mutation. Okay, delete auto mutation. Same thing. I'm just repeating the same thing. So here now, delete and auto. Remember, looking at this mutation here, the argument that you have to make use of your mutation. You have to use this parameter of the name. So you have to use the name of the author to delete. But the way I'm going to do it here is that if you delete the name of the author from the fake database, all the books of that same author will also be removed. That is where I'm going to implement it here. So authors dot filter. So here I'm going to filter so I'm going to do I dot name if it is not equals to. So if it is not equals to the args, like look at here now. In this our schema, you're seeing to delete an author, we have to make use of the name argument. If it's not equals to the args dot name, return. So that's how I've deleted author using JavaScript. And you also need to delete all the books associated to the author using filter as well. So I'll do the same thing. I dot author if it is not equal to art dot name. Okay, finally, what I'm going to do is to return. I'm going to return author deleted, like that. Looking at our mutation schema here, I didn't say I'm going to return an author. I actually wrote a string. So that's why I have to return a string. And the string I chose to return is auto deleted. Then the next mutation to write here is delete book. Delete book. Print using the same filter. I want to update my array. So I'll do book.filter. Then looking at this schema here, we chose to make it we chose to make use of the name as well, the name of the book. So we'll just do if I dot author is not equals to delete book, Oh, sorry. This should be title because that's what I've been using. It should be title. So if I dot author is not equals to ask dot title, I want the book to be deleted. And now return book deleted. Okay. So wait, let me check something to be sure that I didn't make a mistake. If you see something, please also alert me as well. If I dot author is not equals to ask. Oh, sorry, this should be title. This should be title. Yeah, yeah. Okay, okay. I think it's correct now. So yeah, we are done writing our resolver. So looking at this, you can see that a resolver is just an object that has various methods for each field, trying to fulfill data requirements for each field in your schema here. So next, I'm back to my playground. So let's see. Okay. So yeah, I'm going to try and create a book in the schema. So that's how cool this stuff is now. I want to create a book, but let's say I don't know how to do that. I can look at the documentation on this right panel. This was automatically created. I know the fields and what it needs.
Hello, Samson, your audio disconnected.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Nope, I can't hear you.
We can hear you. Prosper, I think it's
I
from
can
you.
can hear you. I can hear you.
Yeah, Prosper,
Alright.
it's from your end.
Okay.
Okay, yeah. Okay,
I
I can hear
was
you now.
scared. I was scared. Like, have I been talking like without you guys hearing me? Just wanted to.
No,
No,
we did hear you, bro.
Oh, thanks. Okay. So to do this, I want to create an author now. And then just call it create author. And there's something called variables. Or should I use variables? I don't think I should use variables. Let me just copy. Let me just do it like that. Oh, no, what am I doing? Create author. And the next thing I need to do is I think I'm making a mistake somewhere. I don't know why this is that. They say station. Okay.
Try refreshing.
So just to be sure, let me check those slides. So because I knew I actually made an example of what the mutation would look like. So
I think should be a small letter M, not capital letter M.
okay. Let me just use this. Let me just use this. I was trying to use the variables, but I think I'll just use
Yes. Your schema is different.
this seems to work. Like the element preparing, I just use this as an example. But there's something called a variable. So if I'm to use a variable, all I need to do is to like create an object here. Let's say like this is title. I'll have to create a title key and just call it new book. Then the next field is auto. I'll call it I just call it DevC. DevC, right? Okay. Then the next thing I have to do is for you to like use variables, you have to create another like you have to write this in a functional way. So the first one I'm going to say will be it should be title, and title is a type string, and then the next one is auto, and auto equals type string. Then I think I can just pass it. I switching this. I'm making a mistake somewhere here. No. What is the error?
Go.
Okay, they said variable string is not defined by operation create. Oh, okay. This should be auto. Which was a mistake. Okay, I think this should be a must. Yeah, so that is done. So if you have errors, just try and hover across the various arguments and to show you where your error is from. So right now, the variable I'm using here is title, new book, and auto DevC. So I try to, and after executing this mutation, you can see here the field I need to return the title field. So once I execute this, I return this. And if I try to make a query now at this point, a query, although you don't need to write query, it's just a shortcode. You can just use a brace, then you write books, and under books, you hit the title. This is a short form. You don't need to write query. So once I execute this, you can see you now have a new book. If I try to attach another book, let me see. Let me just call it new school by the same author. Let's see. If I try to query my books, you return two array. Sorry, yeah, and a single array with two objects inside. So at this point, this is the same thing you're going to do if you want to delete. You just have to look at the schema here and then execute on that. So this is the fundamentals, and this doesn't actually cover every benefit or all the features of GraphQL. It's just the basic part of GraphQL. And if you have any question, you can go on with that.
Yep. Yeah. So I guess you done something.
Yes, I'm done with the example at this point.
All right. Okay. Yeah. So I think that was a pretty awesome session. Yeah. So before we actually continue, does anyone have any question? Okay. Yeah. So if anything was kind of
Yeah, I have a question.
Okay, yeah, go on.
okay,
Please, I noticed that I don't know one of the fields you gave it an ID property and you set it to date.now.
Yes.
You understand? Yeah, what I'm asking is, does it not automatically assign an ID?
Okay, that is the thing now. Now look at this now. Remember, I said earlier on that GraphQL gives you decorative fetching. So at this point, the only thing I'm requesting from my server is just the title of each book. Let's say I want other details like the ID, so I can actually add that here, ID. And if I try to execute the query, it gives me the ID. You're seeing now, we have the time. So this is one of the contrasts between GraphQL and the classic REST API style. If you were to request the user details, your REST API, you might get other things that you don't need, and that's like attach another layer of data consumption for your user. But in GraphQL, you can just request for exactly what you need. That's one of the benefits of GraphQL.
cool stuff. Any other question? Yeah, but Tochku, I guess you got your answer.
Yeah, I understand now.
Yeah,
Thanks.
makes sense.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Now, my question is this:
Okay.
about the resolvers. Like, what I'm trying to understand is that you are just like following like a kind of architecture, right? Like you created the type des, the resolvers, the index, and the data.
Yes.
Like if anytime I want to do something like this, am I going to follow this architecture, or is it just like a way of doing yours or something like that?
Okay.
Because I'm focusing mainly on the resolvers, because the resolver is like what, according to what you did, the resolvers is just like will I call it a repo or something that have to do talk directly to your data, so
Okay.
that you
Yeah.
don't have to do any extra work, just like getting those specific queries one by one. Then anyone that you want to use the resolver to fetch it.
Yeah.
So is this like the normal architecture for it, or there are other ways you can perform such thing?
Okay. Okay. Cool. Cool question. I said earlier on that GraphQL is just a spec. So let's say even if you're using JavaScript, although I'm trying to like move that further, let's say you're developing in PHP. Now you might not follow this exact way. Even in JavaScript, there are other libraries that uh, their own way to like to use the library is totally different. If you use something like I think there's a library called, let me see. Let me just show you something so that you be clear. I think Express GraphQL. Yeah, Express GraphQL. If you check this library, you see that it's loading. If you check the examples here, you see how complicated it is. Like it's not that beginner friendly, and it still gives you that graphical kind of feature to your infrastructure, but it's still all of them try to conform to the same spec, but you can go about it in various ways. So the way I'm doing it
Oh,
now might not be the way you do it. Might actually use a different library. Even if you use Apollo, you might try to introduce something like TypeScript to attach extra type definitions to what you're doing or whatever. So it's not like the way I'm doing it, you have to
oh,
follow the
all
same
right.
pattern.
Uh,
Yeah, I hope that actually answers your question. Ms. Vechi.
yes, yes, yes.
Yeah, cool stuff. Yep. So, any other question about rounding up? All right. Yeah. So, if there are no other questions, yeah, I really want to appreciate you, Samson, for actually going on this session with us. And yeah, that was definitely it was super insightful. And yeah, I think I picked up some new GraphQL knowledge. I am truly grateful for that. And yeah, before we finally round up, we'll be going over to the last thing we have lined up for our workshop today, and that's going to be the Kahoot section.
I'm with my phone
Um,
today to make sure that I use that.
all right, yeah. So be like now that you are the speaker,
Yeah.
I don't think it will be just to allow you participate in this Kahoot session
Okay, okay. That
because
makes sense.
definitely
That makes
it's going
sense.
to be a
That makes
win-win
sense.
for you.
That makes
Yeah.
sense.
So please, every other person on this call except for Samson, yeah, I guess you could actually just jump in to the Kahoot session. Yeah. So Samson, please, if you could actually stop sharing your screen so I share mine.
Okay, okay. Let me do that.
Yep. Thank you very much. Yeah,
Yeah.
cool stuff. Okay. Can you see my oh God of mercy? I don't give a spoon. Jesus. How did this just happen? Wait,
We don't
sorry,
catch.
sorry, people. Wow.
Multi-book. Guy in a library. Uh,
Yeah, so I'm coming, I'm done, and yep, we should be starting pretty soon. Network, don't fuck me up now. Yeah, so can you hear that?
Yeah.
All right. So I guess good stuff. Yeah, so basically go to kahoot.it, then impute this pin there. Oh god, we still have 0 players. Wow. Probably I might
Am
just
I
be
free
taking
to
back
play?
my goodies.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, okay, yeah.
yeah. Give,
ND are free to play. For real, nobody wants to join. Yo,
Nobody
I
wants
see
to join.
clarity.
my sister.
Looks like the internet is bad for a lot of persons today.
Yeah.
We might just have a win now. Clarence is just ready to take the whole goodies. Yup. Ah, into money. Who's into money? I guess that shouldn't be hard to figure.
There's things you want.
Into money, you do give away for us.
Please do money. Okay, this wow. And now do money. Wow, that's
Wow.
good.
Please let's join the game. Like, are we having network issues?
I can't join now. It's not the other people.
Okay. I'm here to see Tochuku.
Yeah.
I'm here to see.
My the site is loading. It's very slow on my system.
Kahoot gods, they're angry with you. Are you in? I can't see you. I can see Chinedu. So we just need one more person to join. Yeah, so Samson, you can join.
Okay. Awesome. Let me join. Kahoot.it. 162.
Cool stuff. Yeah, so Tochuku, should we actually start without you? Okay, I think someone just joined in. Mwachuku.
Yeah, I'm joining now. 724.
Good stuff. All right. Good stuff. Nice.
Yeah,
Awesome.
don't join.
Yup. Ladies and gentlemen, may the fastest winger win. Starting. Dun.
Who is the lady in the mist?
Wow. 2 persons got that. Cool stuff. Yeah, Zubi. Good morning. Wow. Others feel that. Cool stuff. Cool stuff. Cool stuff.
Yeah.
You don't know about it.
My network is bad. I can't even select something.
Yeah, and the money is chopping this money. Nice. One person actually filmed this. Cool stuff. I guess network is bad for some persons. Wow. Nobody got it. Damn. Wow. Wow. Nobody got this question. Damn. I find it hard to believe. Wow.
Oh, I think I deleted it. I don't know what happened.
All right. I guess network. One person got it. Something. Let me see. Don't collect it. Like someone pay attention when this guy will talk about mutation today. Nice one. Cool stuff. See. Wow. Nice. 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 Let's see. Uh, Tochukwu. Yeah. You. Tell your turn to. Did someone actually select Dan Abramo? Wow. Cool stuff. Let's see. Wow. Third place, Tochukwu. Good money.
First place should go to win, huh? The teacher cannot win this competition.
Yeah, so this was what I actually prophesied and it has happened. Yeah, so Samson, please, you have to voluntarily give your spot to someone,
Yeah.
someone you hate or someone you love. You have to step down for someone.
I'm the closest now.
Yeah. I mean, if they could
Okay, yeah.
swap.
So, all right. So anybody are giving this stuff to now is going to come in third position. Now, if you beg or if you say, guy, anybody that if you talk say Samson just give my collect this thing. No, they punch Shakara.
Yeah,
Now
like,
the tag is there for the winner.
let me see. Let me see if I can pick one. Participants. I have to give someone that no competes now.
Anybody at all, just anybody your heart
Okay,
feel like
let me see.
this person thing.
It's like Unzube did not follow. So, like his name. Did he join?
Nah, what's happening now?
I joined.
Okay,
We
okay.
joined.
I give it to Unzube. I give it to Unzube.
Yeah,
Why?
so
I
What
got
was them? Somebody that came forth.
yeah, so Ndumon, you don't want to like show some persons love. You want to claim your first position.
Okay,
Yeah.
is
So
there?
basically,
Wait, let me see.
yeah.
I think who is here? Probably Claret. Yes, Claret is here too.
All right, cool stuff. So we have our winners. So we
yeah.
have first place. We have So we have Claret. We have
Unzube.
Tochuku. We have who's the last person? Nzube. Yeah, please. I just want three of you to do something. Yeah, just reach out to me on WhatsApp. Reach out to me on WhatsApp. Then definitely developer circles Owerri. We have some goodies for you all. And yeah, just make sure to reach out to me on WhatsApp. Last weekend, yeah, that was last Saturday. We actually had a Kahoot section and we still had three winners. Yeah, but only two persons actually reached out to me. I actually made a post on Facebook for the last person to reach out to me, but the person is still yet to reach out to me. Yeah, so please, I'm begging now, three of you, please reach out to me on WhatsApp. Yeah, thanks everyone for actually participating
Yeah.
in this section. Yeah, so I really want to especially thank our speaker Samson for actually doing justice to this topic,
Yeah.
GraphQL. Like, yeah, it's one thing to know something, then another thing to be able to teach it. Yeah, so it's really awesome, and yeah, I learned something new definitely. Yeah,
That's
okay. I really want to appreciate everyone for coming. I know most of us have busy schedules. Yeah, I think we're about the highest number we had in this meeting was about 12. Yeah, so but you all actually made out time for this workshop. Yeah, and it's really awesome, and we really want to say thank you. That's so. Do you have any other thing to say? Yeah.
So super thanks to everyone who made that time. I think for September we're focusing on highlighting open source internships and how you can get in. Because I see that we'll be having open source internships coming up sometime this month or next month, and also in the year to come. So let's see how we can get ahead and get persons in our community participate more. I think this year we got up to 5 persons in open source internships, and I think we can even double the number next year. So just keep your ears on the ground and your eyes out for the flyers. And I hopefully when you call on you, you are going to shop. Thank you.
yeah.
Yo, that's something awesome, man. Really, I really advise you actually reach out to our friends, like tip them on what's actually coming. Yeah, so it's this junction that we have to say goodbyes. It was really awesome hosting you all, and yeah, catch you all on Facebook, catch you on WhatsApp. Thanks for attending.
Okay.
Sweet dreams.
Thanks.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Sweet dreams.